Paul Hamilton, his appearance brought to you by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. Paul was at yesterday's press conference, the introductory press conference for the Sabres' new general manager, Jarmo Kekäläinen. We'll get his thoughts on it and moving forward, like what other changes could come, if anything, as he joins us here on this Tuesday morning. Coming up later in the show, 8 o'clock, Joe Marino, and 9 o'clock, Jarmo Kekäläinen himself scheduled to join us. So stick with us. We got plenty of Bills and Browns coverage on the way as well. Paul, how are you today? Good morning.
I am well. How are you?
I'm all right. Had a good time listening to the press conference. It's a introductory presser. It's hard to get these wrong. And if you sound buttoned up and sound professional, you kind of get it right. I thought Jarmo Kekäläinen sounded like a guy that's been in that chair before. Like he had a command about him and sounded like a GM. So, that's a passing grade, if nothing else.
Well, yeah. I mean, he knows what to expect. He knows what he expects from players, coaches, people inside the organization. And it sounds like he's not going to accept anything less. And that's one of the things that, asking around about him, when he first got here, I started asking people I know and that I see in the press box and about him. And every single person who knew him or worked with him or knew people that did talked about how he's a no-nonsense guy, that he will look you in the eye and tell you exactly what he thinks. He'll have those hard conversations with you, no matter how uncomfortable they might be. And first thing out of his mouth was, he was upset at what he had seen this year because there were too many games where the team got outworked. And he goes, his quote was, well, there was games where we looked like we thought it was going to be easy, and we lost because we got outworked, and that's unacceptable. And Lindy Ruff said the same thing when he came back, and for a while there were consequences, and he was holding people accountable. That seems to have gone away. When I hear, well, they got worked or whatever, I haven't seen too many players get benched anymore or not wind up in the lineup, and so I'll be interested to see. Okay, it's unacceptable. What's going to happen when you see it?
Right. And even if you've thought that to this point, Paul, like it kind of sounds to me like that's a critique of the coaching staff, isn't it? Like you're not getting these guys to do this on a night-to-night basis. Who does that fall on? That's usually the coaches.
Well, no, I think that was more at the players when he says something like, we looked like we thought it was going to be easy. I don't think that necessarily comes from the coaches. I think where it comes from is, what I look at is when it's the coach's problem is, why is that? Okay, it's unacceptable. And we hear in the locker room, well, that's unacceptable. And we hear after the game that's unacceptable, but why are there no consequences? When I watch the same players make the same mistakes over and over again, and they're still playing, or they're still, they don't wind up on the bench anymore. There were consequences before, but when the way he worded that's more at the players. He goes, when he's talking about, it looked like we thought it was going to be easy. Well, the coaches are never going to act like it's going to be easy. And the players, I think, sometimes are the ones that get overconfident. And Tage Thompson has addressed this many times. Like we get full of ourselves. We win two or three games, and then we get full of ourselves. And then we think it's going to be easy, and he gets disgusted. To me, that's more on the leadership group on this team.
Yeah,
of holding people accountable as players, and more than coaches.
I guess what I was thinking for that is that it's the coach's job to get that out of the players, and if you don't think it's the coaches, then you would think that the players have a DNA problem when it comes to that. And then if that's where you end up, then I guess you're talking about wholesale changes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it happens too much. It really does. I hear that after games way too much, and have for a while now, even before Lindy Ruff showed up. And it's. I always look at it too. If you're in the National Hockey League and you need a coach to motivate you, you shouldn't be in the National Hockey League. You should be well past that in your career. How did you get to the National Hockey League? Of course, on talent, but how did you get here if you need coaches to motivate you? Most players don't need coaches to motivate them because they can motivate themselves, or they never would have made it to the NHL. But when it doesn't happen time and time again, I think the consequences have stopped being there for these players. Where when Lindy Ruff first got here, I think he was holding players accountable, because that was the big thing. Players are going to be held accountable. It's almost like, well, Granato didn't do that. And he didn't, because he didn't believe in it. He doesn't believe in benchings. He feels all that does is make players more uptight, and they don't play freely. But Lindy Ruff believed in him to start, but it doesn't seem like he believes in him as much now.
Felt like Granato, Paul, part of his problem might have been he didn't have many players. He didn't have depth he felt like he could go to and still win. And the Sabres, do they have that depth now? Like, we've seen the young guys come up and look kind of good. Like the Ostland thing, sending him down, where Lindy basically talked about how he did nothing wrong. He went down for the numbers game of it. Like, that is part of the problem, is it not? If you want to bench somebody, you could bench somebody, but you can't put the third goalie in there, like in their spot. So, like, that's a spot where the Ostland thing and the three goalie thing could have really hamstrung the coach himself, which would push the GM a little further out.
And the three goalie thing was talked about, and he admitted that has to end. It's right now it's fine. He said right now Ellis is injured, so you only have two goaltenders, but he agrees that it's just not something that's going to work, and they're going to have to make a decision, of what they're going to do with three goaltenders, because he admitted that they need to get it down to two. And then you're not worried about Ostland having to go down when you have that extra roster spot.
Where would your it's going to be different maybe every day. Like, do we have any idea who they would be looking to on that? He did talk about Ellis and like why they wanted him in the first place, Paul. I don't know. Does Lyon make the most sense, or like would that be your guess at this point if you had to pick one of who they'll actually move on from when everybody's healthy?
If it were me, I would be angling towards keeping Ellis. I've liked what I've seen of him for the most part. I think there's a possibility, and we can't tell. We haven't seen a big enough sample. We really haven't seen a big enough sample of what Devin Levi is going to be in the NHL. But I really liked what I've seen of Ellis. I like his rebound control, except for one game, the Calgary game. And I think he might have a pretty good opportunity maybe to be the best of the bunch. So now I wouldn't ignore a team like if the St. Louis Blues called and want him back, and they think, well, it doesn't look like they're going to waive him, so if we want him back, we're going to have to trade for him. I would certainly listen to what would be offered. But if it were me, I would put both Lyon and Luukkonen out there. I'd have word out there that either one is available, and I would listen to the offers, and I would take the best offer between the two, and move one of them from there, and then go with the other two. But I would keep Ellis in the mix if I could. But again, I would not ignore calls about him if somebody wanted to call and about it. But that's the way I would be looking at it, and Lyon, with being a veteran, any team that's looking for a goaltender right now that has a goaltender out now, the Winnipeg Jets have gotten their goaltender back, but I thought that would be a perfect landing spot for him, because Comrie is not the answer. I mean, when you have Hellebuck out for a long period of time, they need to do better than Comrie. But the problem is that Hellebuck likes Comrie very much. So I think to satisfy him, they keep him around. But he's not a very good backup. I think Lyon would be a huge step up as a backup goaltender. and I think than what Comrie is for them.
Paul Hamilton with us. Paul, of the things that Jarmo said yesterday, he answered the question about resources and cap space. When he said that they have the ability to spend to the cap, did he not answer that to you differently than Adams used to? I feel like Adams always used to dance around that question, and Jarmo just sounded a lot more direct yesterday that they'll have the ability to spend to the cap.
No, I disagree. Adams always said we have the resources to spend whatever we want. There is no budget, that he has to follow as far as from the salary cap standpoint. He always talked about that Terry Pegula allows him to spend whatever he needs to spend out there. And, I didn't think even last year was a big deal, quite honestly, to be $5 million-ish under the cap. Fine. If you're $13 million, then yes, that's a problem. Or if I had heard at some point that they didn't make a trade because that would have, raised their cap to a place, but I never heard that. I never heard that. Well, they didn't acquire a player because they have this internal budget and they can't go over it, even though they had the cap space to make that trade. I never heard that once. And this year, they're approximately about 2.9 under the cap. So I've never agreed with that. I've never thought it's been a huge problem. And when Adams first started, yeah, they had to get players to get up to the salary cap floor, because their plan was, well, we have young players, we're going to develop them, and we're going to re-sign them, which they did. Samuelson, they re-signed, and Thompson, they re-signed, and Dahlin, they re-signed, and Power, they re-signed, and Cousins, you know the whole list. And that, boosted it up where they didn't have to start, make trades for guys who were going to be injured for the rest of their careers so they get to the salary cap floor. But being what they are now, almost, it's just under $3 million around the cap. To me, that's spending to the cap. I do not think that was a problem, and I don't think it ever has been.
Do you think a bigger question than yesterday, more than would this team spend to the cap, was the question about autonomy and Terry Pegula? And on one hand, what could Jarmo say there? But on the other hand, it's tough to just say, well, the guy's lying when he says that yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not going to accuse people of lying when I'm not in their meetings and that type of thing. I think the difference, what you might be getting at, is I think Adams could not make moves without the approval of Terry Pegula.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it sounds like we'll be in contact with Terry Pegula. And we'll let him know what's going on, but it sounds like he has control of. If he thinks a trade needs to be made, he can make it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to ask permission, and I think that's the difference. I think for Kevin Adams, he basically anytime he wanted to do something, he had to ask permission to do it. So I think that helps. I mean, you've hired a GM with experience who was the GM of the Blue Jackets for 11 years, and he knows what he's doing. And let your people that you hire to do the job, let them do the job. He goes, if he has questions, I'll answer them. That's fine. But he said, I've been given the autonomy to do what I see fit to make this team a better team, and I think that includes making trades or whatever that might be.
Paul Hamilton with us on the Wester Hotline. Jarmo Kekäläinen introduced to the media yesterday on Paul, the coaching staff, and maybe more things that could come. He said that everything's going to be evaluated. Would you be surprised at this point if nothing else between maybe the coaching staff and the hockey department happened in the foreseeable future? Do you think that it's possible that this could be it, or was the way he talked yesterday giving you pause that there could be more coming?
No, I think there could be more coming. I mean, he has people that he surrounded himself with in Columbus that I'm sure that he would probably like to work with again, people he trusts and he would like to surround himself with. I mean, let's face it. I mean, first of all, Adams gets the job, and he's not qualified for the job. And then the reason he gets the job is because Jason Botterill, who was a hockey man, wasn't willing to gut the hockey department. And Adams was willing to do that, and Adams was criticized by some very well-respected hockey people. Why did you take the job when part of taking the job was on your first day you had to basically fire X amount of people and gut the hockey department? I mean, that's what he wound up doing, and then he winds up having the same guy doing amateur scouting and pro scouting. Probably should not be in charge of either one. He had never done either job of director of pro scouting or director of amateur scouting, and he's in charge of both, and probably shouldn't have been in charge of any of them. So now you've got a guy who shouldn't be the GM, a guy that shouldn't be in charge of the scouting, and that's what I think will end. I think there will be more experience put into the hockey department when he surrounds himself with people that he knows and he wants around. And he was asked straight up if Lindy Ruff, what this future of his in the organization, and he was non-committal. You know, it's like he did talk about Lindy Ruff being, what his strengths are and what he has seen from him. But when he was, asked, well, does that mean Lindy Ruff is staying? His comment was, well, we are evaluating everything. Everything will be evaluated. And that means players, that means coaching staff, that means the hockey department.
Yeah.
So there was no vote of confidence after he talked about how good Lindy Ruff is in his preparations and that his record speaks for itself and all that. He didn't say, well, no, Lindy Ruff is staying. He said basically he'll be evaluated like everybody else will be evaluated.
Do you even get the sense, Paul, that Lindy wants to keep doing this?
He was so upset last year that it went the way it went, and blamed himself because he felt that he overestimated some of the guys on this team and felt that he let the community down. That's why he wants to keep doing it, I think, is because I think he feels the fans deserve better than what they've gotten in the last 14 years. And he felt they deserved better last year, and he felt he let them down as the coach of the team. So he was really looking forward to doing that. So I don't think that's changed at all, in his mind. So, whether he wants more than this year, because this is the end. Adams supposedly, I guess, got an extra year added to his contract when Kekäläinen showed up, which still has me scratching my head. I don't get it. But I don't think Lindy Ruff got an extra year also, but who knows? I mean, this owner throws contract extensions around, and then he gets all upset when he has to pay people for not working because he's got to fire them.
Then, of course, there's the other part of that would be, Paul, even if Lindy wants to, like, it's not is the position his as long as he wants it?
No, I don't think it is.
I wouldn't think so either.
I mean, it might not be his tomorrow when they come on the ice. I mean, I would imagine that that evaluation with Lindy Ruff probably came right after that he talked with us. Because the coaching staff were in the building, even if the players aren't in the building, and some of them were, but the coaches are always there. So I don't think that they would have put that on hold. I'm sure that was probably talked about immediately after he spoke with us.
If something did happen, Paul, I'm sure I've asked you about this guy like 4 different times in history over this playoff drought. The Tortorella idea is getting some run just because he has worked with Kekäläinen in the past. Do you have an opinion on that as an idea if there was a coaching change?
The two names that are thrown around, DeBoer and Tortorella, I would go with DeBoer first. Both wear out their welcomes rather quickly. They both are good coaches, and they both will, in the beginning, get good things out of their players and get good results. But coaches like that tend to wear on players after a while, and the message just goes away. I'll use Phil Housley as an example. Of course, he doesn't have the resume at those two, but he yelled and screamed every single practice. I mean, he was screaming at them all the time. And after a while, I just sat there and thought, these guys are not paying attention at all because it just became noise after a while because all he did is scream at him. And they just start. It just goes over your head after a while. It's in the beginning. It's like oh yeah, okay, and you're kind of on your toes when you hear it. But when you hear it all day, every day, it becomes the normal noise of the day, and the shock factor, so to speak, of standing there screaming and yelling at people just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Paul Hamilton's appearance brought to you by Relax Honda. Relax, we got this. All right, Paul. Tomorrow night, Philadelphia. We'll see if they can usher in the Kekäläinen era with a win.
And by the way, very quickly, I know you had retweeted it, and I did too. There was a panel that Darren Dreger was on and everything.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things that came out of that was, Adams had told him that what the Tuck camp was looking for was just a shade over Kempe. I always said it should be maybe under Kempe. So I actually crunched some numbers. And when you look at their better years, which is the last 3 or 4 years for each of them, they both are averaging 33 goals a year. Tuck is averaging 40 assists and Kempe 30 assists. So Tuck is averaging maybe 10 points a year more than Kempe is in the last 3 or 4 years when they both really kind of upped their production. That's why I looked at that. But when you look at their career over 82 games, Tuck averages 26 goals, Kempe 25, Tuck 60 points, Kempe 53. So actually that's not a bad number. I was thinking maybe a little bit under Kempe, but if he's just a little bit above him, numbers maybe kind of prove that out.
All right.
And that would be around like $11 million a year, right? It would be a hair over Kempe.
Approximately. Yeah. You could still keep it under 11. Kempe, for some, I think 10-7 sticks in my mind without looking it up real quick because I know we don't have time. But it's right in that area there.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Take care.
The Alex Tuck decision looms.